He didn't know her name. He didn't know where she came from. But when he heard that cry, "Daddy, please help her!" Sue, something inside him snapped awake. The world around him blurred into silence. The only thing that mattered was that terrified little voice. And within seconds, the quiet, worn-out single father who had spent years trying to stay invisible became someone else entirely. The night was colder than usual, the kind of cold that crept into your bones and reminded you how alone you really were. Jack Turner pulled his jacket tighter as he stepped out of the diner, his daughter Lily's hand tucked safely in his. She was only 8, her small fingers warm and trusting against his Kalao's palm. Life hadn't been easy since her mother passed. 2 jobs, late nights, and a heart full of promises he was still trying to keep. They walked past a dark alley on their way home, the kind most people would ignore. But Lily stopped suddenly. "Daddy?" she whispered. "Someone's crying." Jack frowned. "Stay here, sweetheart." He turned the corner and saw her. Teenage girl, barely 16, cornered by 2 men. Her backpack was torn, her face streaked with tears, and her voice broke as she begged them to stop. The taller man reached for her again, laughing like it was a game. Jack didn't think. He's moved. In less than a second, he was between them. "That's enough," he said, his voice calm but lethal. The men smirked, sizing him up, a tired mechanic with worn boots and a faded army jacket. But they didn't see the soldier beneath that jacket. They didn't see the man who had spent years in the desert, learning how to end fights before they started. One swung first. Jack blocked, twisted, and drove his elbow into the man's chest. The other lunged, but Jack caught his arm and slammed him into the wall. It was over in seconds. The girl stumbled backward, trembling. Thank you," Jack nodded, breathing heavy. "You're safe now. Go home." Or she hesitated, staring at him like she wanted to say more. But then she ran off into the night. When Jack turned back, Lily stood at the end of the alley, eyes wide and glistening. "Daddy, you helped her." He smiled softly, crouching to her level. "That's what we do, sweetheart. We help people when no one else will." But what he didn't know, what neither of them could have known, was that this small act of courage would soon turn his life upside down. To the next morning, Jack was back under a car at the auto shop, grace on his hands and exhaustion in his eyes. He didn't expect thanks for what he did. He'd done what any decent man would do. Still, there was something about that girl's face he couldn't shake. A mix of fear and something deeper, something broken. The shop door opened. He heard expensive shoes on concrete, a sharp contrast to the usual scuffed boots and sneakers. When he slid out from under the car, a man in a tailored suit was standing there, tall, confident, and clearly out of place. "Jack Turner?" the man asked. Jack wiped his hands on a rag. "Yeah. Can I help you?" The man's gaze was steady, his voice measured. "My name is Richard Hale. I'm the CEO of Hale Industries." Jack frowned. The name meant nothing to him. "All right, what's this about?" Richard took a deep breath. "The girl you helped last night? Her name is Emma. She's my daughter." Jack froze. For a moment, the world went quiet again. "Your daughter?" "Yes," Richard said. His voice softened, the hard edge fading. "She told me everything. If you hadn't been there—" His words faltered. "Mr. Turner, I owe you more than I can ever repay." Jack shook his head. "You don't owe me anything. I just did what anyone would have done." "Anyone?" Richard gave a faint, sad smile. Most people would have walked away. There was an awkward silence. Jack wanted to get back to work, but something in Richard's eyes kept him still. The man wasn't just here to say thank you. There was something more behind his visit. Richard looked around the small, worn-down shop, the peeling paint and the flickering light above them. "You used to be military, didn't you?" Jack hesitated. "Yeah. A long time ago. My company supports veterans. We fund programs, job placements, but honestly, men like you never ask for help, do you?" Jack gave a small laugh. "Never been good at that." Richard studied him for a moment longer. "Then let me do something for you, not as a CEO, but as a father." That evening, Jack returned home to their small apartment. Lily was at the kitchen table, drawing as always, tiny doodles of stars and stick figures that somehow made him forget how heavy life felt. She looked up with her bright smile. "How was work, Daddy?" He sat down beside her. "Strange," he said. "Someone came to thank me for what happened last night." Lily's eyes widened. "Was it the girl?" He shook his head.
"Her dad."
"Oh," she said softly, going back to her drawing.
"Did he say thank you?" Jack smiled.
"Yeah, he did." Lily thought for a moment, then looked up again. "You know what I think? What? She grinned. I think you were her hero, Daddy. Jack's heart ached at her words. Heroes weren't men who fixed cars for minimum wage and counted pennies at the grocery store. Heroes didn't wake up at 4 a.m., wondering if they could afford their kids' shoes. But to Lily, he was everything. And that, he realized, was enough. The next week, Jack was invited to the Hale headquarters, an office so pristine it felt like another world. He almost turned around at the door, but Richard was already waiting inside. I didn't come for a job, Jack said quickly. I know, Richard replied. But hear me out. My daughter hasn't spoken much since the incident. She's withdrawn, scared to even go outside. But she said something last night. She asked if she could see you again. Jack blinked. Why? She said you made her feel safe, Richard said quietly. She doesn't trust anyone, not even me. But when she talks about you, there's light in her voice again. Jack hesitated. He wasn't sure what to say. He wasn't a therapist. He was just a dad trying to survive. But then he thought of Lily. How much she had healed just because he showed up every day, how love didn't always need grand gestures. Sometimes it just needed presence. He finally nodded. All right, I'll see her. Over the next few weeks, something remarkable happened. Jack began visiting Emma and her father's mansion, a place filled with money but starved of warmth. Emma slowly opened up to him, sometimes laughing with Lily when she joined them. The two girls became inseparable, and for the first time in years, Jack saw his daughter surrounded by joy. Richard often watched from a distance, his expression unreadable. One evening, he finally spoke. You've done more for my daughter than any doctor could. You gave her something she lost, hope. Jack smiled faintly. Sometimes all a person needs is someone who listens. Richard looked down, then back up with a quiet resolve. Jack, I know you'd never ask, but I want to offer you a position at my company. Head of security. Full benefits, housing, schooling for your daughter. You deserve it. Jack stared at him, speechless. He thought about the nights he'd gone hungry so Lily could eat, the days he'd worked until his hands bled. For once, life wasn't taking something from him. It was giving something back, he accepted. Months passed. Emma healed. Lily thrived. And Jack finally found peace, not in wealth or comfort, but in knowing that kindness still mattered. One night, as he tucked Lily into bed, she whispered, Daddy? Yeah, sweetheart. She smiled sleepily. Remember when I said you were a hero? He brushed her hair back gently.
Yeah. I was right,
she said. Because heroes don't just save people, they help them live again. Jack's eyes softened as he kissed her forehead. Outside, the city lights glowed softly against the night sky, and somewhere in the distance, another father looked at his daughter, safe, smiling, and free, whispering the same silent prayer of gratitude. In a world full of power and pride, two fathers had learned the same truth sometimes. The greatest strength isn't in fighting battles, but in helping someone stand again. And it all began with a single voice in the dark. Daddy, please help her.